Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. He's a member of the Judiciary and in the studio. Yeah. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Your reaction to what the president just said there about white nationalism is what?
It is disappointing that Donald Trump once again is trying to downplay the threat of white nationalism and white supremacy. We saw this happen during Charlottesville when he said there were fine people on both sides of the white supremacy march. We also know it's factually incorrect. According to Southern Poverty Law Center, in the last 3 years of Barack Obama's presidency, hate groups declined. Now we have a 30% increase in hate groups and white supremacy groups that correspond with Donald Trump's presidency. It's unfortunate he's refusing to acknowledge that reality.
Another comment made by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, who said this is just not normal and we have to do better. The fact that we're even talking about this, is the president with his rhetoric somewhat normalizing it? Because he's the most powerful person in the world.
He's sure trying to, and then there's everyone else who's trying to not normalize this. And we also know that it's beyond just not normal. These are actual threats that could harm and injure and kill people. We know, based on latest data, there's been a 17% increase in hate crimes in 2017. Much of that is a rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes, and we need the President of the United States to acknowledge this new reality.
Let's take a listen also to Senator Blumenthal. He had a few words to say about the attack. Take a listen to that.
The president has defied constitutional norms and principles in declaring a national emergency. Words have consequences, like saying we have an invasion at our border and talking about people as though they were different in some fatal way. I think the public discourse from the president on down is a factor in some of these actions.
Democrats are speaking one way. Republicans may offer another position. But ultimately, is it fair to link the president specifically to this New Zealand attack?
I don't think you can link a person's words and rhetoric to specific incidents, because that person, whoever committed those terror attacks, are held responsible for their own actions. However, Donald Trump did run a divisive campaign to get the presidency, where he wanted to divide America. He's now governing in a way where he's trying to divide us rather than unify us. And certainly he creates an atmosphere where hate crimes seem to be more allowed. And that is something that we need to shut down as fast as we can.
Let's move on to the veto. The president, having made his first veto now, this on the ruling from the national emergency issue. What are going to be some of the legal challenges to this, or has the president won on the issue?
Well, the significance is not the veto. We always expected he was going to veto this legislation. The significance is that bipartisan majorities of both houses of Congress got the legislation to his desk and rebuked the president. That helps our court case, because I don't see how a court can interpret the congressional law as somehow authorizing a national emergency when we just told him, no, do not authorize this, because there is no national emergency.
But if there's a court case, that means time, which also sort of belabors the explanation of the word, emergency. And we've discussed that before. But where does this go? Does this just put everything in a stall process right now?
It would depend on what the courts do. If the courts issue an injunction stopping this national emergency, then time would be on the side of those who believe there is no national emergency. If they allow this to continue pending appeals, then the time would be on the president's side. So it all depends on how the courts determine the first case.
Let's move on to impeachment, because I know that you have said that you agree with the House Speaker's impeachment comment that was said of late, that he's, quote, just not worth it. But there are a lot of congressional members on your side of the aisle who disagree. Notably, Representative Tlaib disagreed, certainly. Your thoughts? Issue, because your colleagues have said a lot of things about the president recently. Let's put together a group of sound bites. Take a listen.
We've seen real threats to the rule of law from this White House. It's very clear that the president obstructed justice.
The president was trying to profit from the Russians during the campaign.
We got a man that's in the White House that is neither wise nor stable.
He's a liar. He lies every single day. He's a misogynist. He's an admitted sexual predator.
We have a constitutional oversight responsibility to be ferreting out corruption in the executive branch, and this is the most corrupt presidency of our lifetimes.
Okay, so you're hearing all these comments. Are any of these accusations actually impeachable offenses? And if so, why wait for the Mueller report?
So certainly those accusations could be impeachable offenses, but first we need a record. So I'm on the House Judiciary Committee. What we have are great reporting from Msnbc. We have people saying things on TV. We have newspaper articles. We don't have a record. So what we need is to interview witnesses under oath. We have to get all these documents. That's why we send out 81 document requests to individuals and organizations. And then once we build this record, we will then either exonerate Donald Trump and his associates, or we won't. And at that point, we will have a conversation with the American people as to how to proceed.
Okay. Moving on to the president's daughter, Ivanka, and the fact that I believe your committee requested, was it 81 sets of documents? Yes. But not directly from Ivanka, though some 53, I believe, were related to her, but nothing from her directly. So tell me what's going on there.
So that was their first set of document requests. We will have additional sets, and based on information we get, she may be included in additional requests. Right now, we want to know, are there crimes committed by Donald Trump, his family, or his associates?
Like what? What are you looking at Ivanka Trump for?
Well, we do know that she went on national TV, and she told the American people that her father had nothing to do with Jared Kushner's security clearance or her own. Public reporting shows that Donald Trump ordered Jared Kushner to get a security clearance. I think we want to know also, did Donald Trump have a role in Ivanka's security clearance as well? We want to know if she accepted any gifts or other improprieties based on her position as a senior White House official. And we'll see the evidence we get from these document requests, and then we'll see if we need to ask her for documents.
So do you have plans to bring any of the Trump children at this point to appear before your committee?
It would depend on what we get in terms of our document requests and interviews with witnesses. I do know that some of the Trump children have already testified in other committees, and I expect that to continue this year.
Okay. Let's talk about what's been happening in your neck of the woods with regard to Southern California, both USC, UCLA, this college cheating, the admissions scandal. UCLA's in your district, correct?
Yes.
How loud has the outcry been around this subject?
It's been phenomenally depressing. And actually, when I read this story, it made me feel bad for human nature. I can understand if one coach did this, but you have multiple coaches at multiple universities, and then you have all these different sets of parents who were just engaging in straight up bribery. And what they were doing, they knew was illegal. I believe all these people should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, but it does show that the wealthy will do anything and do have certain advantages in trying to get their children into elite colleges.
Yeah, and I've made no secret of the fact that I'm a USC alum, and it is downright painful to see what is happening to the university. But to what extent is the university as a whole, do you believe USC, Stanford, Georgetown, UCLA, any of the number of schools that have been involved in this, are the schools themselves held culpable in some way, or is it just apples that are on the staff or part of the administration?
So my hope is all these universities will do internal investigations and then put in processes to make sure that they don't get tricked again and they don't have these scandals happen. But if you look at their indictment, these folks were going way out of their way to trick the admissions offices. And you had this one case at USC where they sort of were wondering, how did this person get this slot, when it appeared that the kid did not actually play water polo. And then you had a USC administrator who was in on this bribery scandal write a very long email explaining how he played water polo in Europe and all these other clubs. So it was a very, very widespread bribery scheme, and they were tricking admissions offices. Hopefully they'll put in processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. Yeah,
as you said, this is just sad any way you look at it. But Ted Lieu, very glad to have you here, so you put a smile on my face. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.